Hi, my name's Phil Gardner and welcome to Fun with Boxes, and today we have a Kickstarter preview for you for a brand new game coming from Exekias Games Limited, and this is coming to Kickstarter later this year, and I'll pop a link into the video description below for you to go and check that out if you fancy the look of this new game. And the game is Escape from Pompeii. Whoa, look at that. Wonderful looking cover there. And this is a game for 2 to 4 players, ages 8+. And this game is designed by Sam Rapier and Stanbridge. And we saw this last year, an earlier prototype version at Aircon in Manchester. And we saw them again at Aircon in Harrogate this year, where they very kindly gave us a copy of the pre-production of the game for us to take a look at, ready for their Kickstarter launch. So, without any further ado, let's have a look at what you get in a game of Escape from Pompeii, and then we'll have a look at how to set up and how to play the game. Okay, let's set up a game of Escape from Pompeii. So the first thing you need to do is to lay out the board in the center of the table, and then you will need to sort out the rest cards, and the rest cards have this back, and the resource cards which have this back. And what you need to do, separate them by type. So these are the wine cards, so pop these here. And we do the same for the cloth, the bread and the money. And then we take our rest cards and we'll sort these into baths and into amphitheatre cards. And next take the event cards and give these a good old shuffle and pop these near the board so that everyone has easy access to them. And next we take the trivia cards and again give these a good old shuffle and again pop these near the board. And now we'll take our favour tokens, which I've put into this little recycled leaf cup holder. This doesn't come with the game, this is just something that we picked up some time ago. And then iconic columns. There are 2 iconic columns, so pop these next to the board as well. Pop the 2 dice near the board, and then what we need to do is shuffle the volcano tiles and lay them out around the board. Now I'm going to set up a 2-player game, and for a 2-player game what we need to do is to remove any reverse turn tiles from the game. Now this is only for the 2-player version. We also need to find the 4 gate tiles and place these around the board onto these edges. And these are the 4 gate tiles. Next we will need to shuffle up all the volcano tiles and we're going to lay them around the board. Now for a 2-player game we will lay them along the longest edge sizes. For a 3-player game you would place them on the long edges and on one of the shorter edges, and for a 4-player game you would place them all the way around the board. So like I said, I'm setting up a 2-player game, so let's put out these tiles. And place any remaining tiles back into the box. And now we'll set up the volcano and place the base in the center of the board. And here is one I prepared earlier. So that's the setup complete. Let's have a look at how you play the game. Well, the aim of the game. You need to earn the gods' favour by taking resources to their temples and escape through the city gates before the last volcano tile is turned and Vesuvius erupts steps. And then out of the players who manage to escape, the player with the most favour tokens will win. And here are the gameplay basics. First, you roll the dice, then you move in any direction, and you collect resources at locations on the board, and take resources to temples to exchange for favour tokens. Then you flip a volcano tile, and then it's the next player's turn. Each player will choose a player piece to use in the game, and if you noticed, each of the buildings has got 2 entrances as marked on the board there. So when you start the game, you can choose to leave via any of the exits. And when you start the game, you do not start with any of the resources in the building where you start. So on your turn, you would roll the dice. So here I've rolled 4, so I would simply leave the hall 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you resolve any steps triggered by the space you end on. Now, as you can see here, we have spaces with a question mark, and these will trigger a trivia card. And you'll notice these spaces here that will trigger an event card. So we haven't triggered anything here, so that would be the end of our turn, and we must turn over a volcano tile from the edges of the board, and you can pick any tile, it does not matter which. So if I flip over this one, and it's just a plain tile. And if there are any effects from the revealed volcano tile, they will apply and affect the next player. So let's say now it's the yellow player's turn. They would roll 2 dice, and they've rolled 7. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they've landed on an event card. So they would immediately trigger that event. This event is famine. All crops have died. All bread must be returned to the bakery. So if any players had any bread, they would have to be all returned to the bakery. And their turn is ended, so they need to flip over a volcano tile, which is a plain tile. And so the game would continue, rolling the dice, moving that many spaces in any direction. You can't backtrack on yourself. And you resolve any steps triggered by the space you end on, if applicable. And at the end of your turn, you must turn over a volcano tile, and that will affect the next player, not you. Now, once all the volcano tiles have been flipped, the game will end. And at the end of the game, out of the players who manage to escape through a gate, the player with the most victory tokens wins. Now, obviously, you really want to get out of Pompeii before the volcano erupts. But it's all about making sure you've got plenty of favour tokens before you run out of Pompeii. Leave it too late and you're going to be stuck there when the volcano goes off. But leave too early and perhaps you give the other players more time to gain more favour than you and also escape. Okay, so let's have a look at the various things you can land on. We've already covered if you land on an event square. Now, if you land on a trivia square, then ask another player to read a trivia card to you. And if you answer correctly, you may roll 1 extra die. I'm not going to spoil any of the trivia questions. So let's talk about movement. You always have to move the full number of spaces that you've rolled, unless that is you are going into a building. So for example, if I'd rolled 7 here, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4 to go into the amphitheatre, and as soon as you enter a building, your movement stops. This is the same for the resource buildings, and also the same for the 2 temple locations. You can, if you so wish, move past the temple locations, but if you are looking to stop to offer any of the resources to the temple, then you move and then stop, and the rest of your movement is over. The same as entering the buildings. Now, when you enter a building, you get to pick up a card from that building. The 4 outer buildings here are the resource buildings, and the 2 buildings in the middle there are the rest buildings. So as soon as you enter a building, you end your turn inside and you pick up a resource card. So if I'd entered this building here, I would take this resource card, and this resource card is bread. Take this to the Temple of Isis to earn 1 favour token. If I was able to get here on a future turn, then I would simply take one of the favour tokens and add that to my supply and return this back to the board. Now, one thing that could happen is 2 players could end up on the same space. And if this happens, you enter into a dice duel. And you each roll 1 die, and the player with the higher number gets to move that many spaces forward. And in the event of a draw, you simply roll again. And you may only dice duel in the street, not in the buildings. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that when you are entering a building and then collecting a resource, you cannot enter that same resource or same rest space twice in a row unless you're directed to do so by an event card. So you couldn't come out here and then on a future move back in because you've already been to that building. You would have to go and visit another building before then being able to, if you wanted to, go back to the original building to take another item. Now, the resource cards will tell you exactly where you need to take them. The cloth has to be taken to the Isis temple and the wine to the temple of Jupiter. And the same there for the bread, that needs to be taken to the Isis temple, and the money to the temple of Jupiter. And you can have any number of resource cards in your hand at once, but be careful, some events can cause you to lose them. But rest cards can help you avoid this. And rest cards can be picked up from these 2 locations in the middle of the board. Now, the event cards, when you land on these spaces, their consequences may be good or bad and can affect either the current player or all players. And if an event card sends you to a resource or rest space, you may still pick up a card from that space. And all the event cards are based on real events from Pompeii. Now, some event cards could cause a space to be blocked off, and you would place the Ionic Columns there to represent a blocked off space by placing one on top of the space until it's no longer needed. Now, as I've said, at the end of each player's turn, the player must reveal a volcano tile. Now, some of these may be blank, but a lot of them will have certain special effects on them. Now, some of the tiles are cracked, and these represent 2 spaces. And whenever you take a cracked tile, then you can place this onto any space on the board, and this turns the 1 space into 2 spaces. So, for example, if I knew one of the players was going to be taking something back to that temple, I could place this cracked tile here. Now this is no longer 1 space, it is now 2 spaces to get through. If you also notice, this one has an event space there and a normal space on that side. Here we have another cracked tile, but this time with a trivia question. And again, you can place these anywhere on the board that you wish, and it changes that tile into a double space. Let's continue to have a look at some of these other ones. Now, that's just a plain cracked tile. So now, in order to get from here to here, which normally would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to get there. So that's the cracked tiles. Now, some other ones, like this tile, for example, is 1 die. Now, don't forget that any of these tiles will affect the other player, the one that is next to take their turn. So in this case, the 1 die, this means they are only allowed to roll 1 die at the start of their turn. This one, for example, would be the next player would get an optional re-roll, so they can choose to re-roll 1 of the dice. And you must use that new number then. This particular tile gives the next player an automatic roll of 12. And there is no need for that player to roll the dice. Now, there are some optional rules that you can add to make the game a little more challenging. And you can try adding some of the rules, just one or two, and it's entirely up to you. But if you are going to use any of the optional rules, make sure to agree them before you start playing the game so that everyone is aware. And there you have it. That's how to play Escape from Pompeii. Fortune favours the bold. Well, there you have it, Escape from Pompeii. Quite a lightweight family game there, with a very, very interesting theme, or certainly a theme that greatly interests me. So there's a lot of stuff to learn here if you're interested in this particular theme. But not only is it a light game, you've got quite a few variant options there to make this game more and more challenging, should you wish. So whilst it's a nice light family game, you can up the stakes, as it were, to ramp that gameplay up a few notches. Well, like I said, this is the prototype version of the game, and this is coming to Kickstarter very, very soon. There's a link in the description below for you to go and check that out. Well, I do hope you enjoyed taking a look at this with me. If you did, please consider hitting the old like button and also hitting that subscribe button too, if you would be so kind, because that really helps to grow the channel. And in the meantime, as always, thanks so much for watching. Please do take care, and bye for now.